All right, thank you very much. At this juncture, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I earlier indicated, we are having an information sharing session on economic governance and public financial management. And to do us the honors, let me briefly introduce our next speaker. Please indulge me because it's very important that we do this. Our distinguished speaker is an astute lawyer, a teacher, a seasoned parliamentarian, and a statesman. Ladies and gentlemen, he has devoted more than 3 decades to public service and democratic governance. He made history in 2021 as the first person elected speaker from a political party that neither formed the government nor held parliamentary majority, and that was the Hung Parliament, and was reflected to lead the 9th Parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, his remarkable parliamentary journey has seen him serve as a minority leader, majority leader, second deputy speaker, minister of waterworks and housing, minister for health, and ultimately the speaker of parliament. The only Ghanaian to have held all these key leadership positions. And I think you should be clapping, though I have not finished. He has spearheaded transformative reforms that have strengthened parliamentary openness, accountability, and responsiveness. His enduring legacies, ladies and gentlemen, include the comprehensive revision of Parliament of Ghana's Standing Orders 2024, the introduction of a code of ethics for members of parliament, the Democracy Cup, Parliament Museum, the GH Parliament TV that is giving us the visibility this morning, the establishment of the National Integrity Award Scheme, which was launched only 3 days ago, and the promotion of citizens' engagement to bring Parliament closer to the people. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, beyond Ghana, he is the second-term president of the Conference of Speakers and Presidents of African Legislators, COSPAL, chairperson of the Africa Geopolitical Group of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, IPU, and has served as the vice president and president of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, a global parliamentary platform that brings over 182 legislators across the world. And in 2023, if you may know, he held the CPC 66 conference in Ghana. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this reflects his immense influence on parliamentary democracy across Africa and the Commonwealth. I know you know who I am referring to, but before I invite him, he is widely respected for his deep sense of integrity, social inclusion, and national development. His distinguished service has earned him numerous national and international honors, including an honorary Doctor of Laws degrees and prestigious Emmy Africa Awards in governance. In recognition of his exceptional leadership and dedication to Ghana's cultural heritage, he has been installed and enskinned by 5 traditional authorities across the country. Where he is from, he is the Na Dakagli, the first. Ladies and gentlemen, this shows the value and respect he commands among diverse traditional communities. Please join me as I welcome our next speaker, who is the longest serving member of Parliament and again the leader of the 8th and the 9th Parliament, the Right Honorable Alban Sumana Kingsford Gbabin. Please, a round of applause for him. Yes, and so if you want to get the abbreviation right, Alban Sumana Kingsford Gbabin, ask Gbabin. So every information you want on parliamentary democracy, ask Gbabin. Please, a round of applause for our Speaker of Parliament. Thank you.
Please, you may resume your seats. Thank you very much, our Director public engagement. And let me, on your kind permission, just acknowledge the existing protocol and go straight into business. I'm told that we have a lot to do in Parliament today. And my colleagues just closed from Parliament this morning. And so a number of them are dozing off because they left Parliament after 2 a.m. That is a lot, and that's what we do almost every time Parliament is about to go on recess. It's something that we must work towards rectifying. But this morning, somebody woke me up with a call, and it was a strange number. And so I picked the call, and the person said he was speaking from Takoradi. And I'm sure you all know the meaning of Takoradi. Huh? You don't know? Yes. But you have heard of bottom tree. You've not heard of bottom tree. Oh. Some of you, you are just too young. Have you read the book written by the iconic national intelligence person, Mr. K.B. Kwanson? Have you read it? I gave some of you copies for free. And I said, go and read it. You won't even read. Sorry? But those who speak the Akan language, they will have known some tree called Takora. Huh? And you know Infante, under it is called what? Under. Z. And so it's the two that are combined. Takora Z. It's not Takora D. See, the Takora tree is where the people who founded that community called, and now a city called Takoradi, settled. And so the people under that Takora tree, that's the meaning of Takoradi. Please, can you collect some this thing for me? This is for free. And so when I woke up, the person said that it's a lady. I can recollect the name, but I can't recollect her. She wants to work in Parliament. And I asked why. And she says that she's been told that now it's very interesting to work in Parliament. And so she came to Parliament yesterday looking for me. And she couldn't get access to me. That's why early this morning, she's aware that I'm not yet in the office. And she was calling to remind me she wants to work in Parliament. I said, well, I don't do the employment. You may go to see the clerk and maybe to the director of human resource. They will assess you when there's a vacancy and we see whether we can employ it. And I think our partners here, maybe you can tell us whether it's interesting or not interesting to work in Parliament. This morning really is a very important occasion, and we've gathered here to launch, I'm told for the first time, this information sharing session between academia, civil society, and the committees of Parliament on economic governance and public financial management. But recall we did that with the media and other bodies, this same hotel, early this year, or was it last year? So this is the second one. On behalf of the Parliament of Ghana, let me warmly welcome all of you to this session. And I sincerely appreciate our development partners, academic institutions, and civil society organizations whose collaboration has made this important initiative possible. Today's gathering is significant because it brings together 3 communities whose contributions are indispensable to effective democratic governance. You have the parliament, you have academia, and you have civil society. Each performs a distinct but complementary role in shaping national development. And what are these complementary roles? Parliament exercises the constitutional responsibility of making laws, scrutinizing and approving major public policies. It's not all policies we approve, but the major public policies, and also the resources to implement them. We also hold the institutions of government, particularly the executive, accountable. Academia generates the evidence, conducts the research and policy analysis that deepen our understanding of national challenges and inform sound policy making. Civil society provides an essential bridge between public institutions and citizens by amplifying community voices, monitoring implementation, and promoting accountability. Unfortunately, while these institutions pursue common objectives, opportunities for structured and sustained collaboration have been very, very limited. As a result, valuable research has not always informed legislative deliberations, and the lived experiences of citizens have not consistently found expression in public policy. Today's initiative seeks to change that narrative. We are here today to consolidate and establish practical platform for continuous dialogue, knowledge sharing, and collaboration among parliament, researchers, and civil society. More importantly, this occasion represents another deliberate effort to strengthen the connection between evidence, policy making, and the everyday realities of the Ghanaian people. Therefore, we converge here not for another stakeholder meeting. We seek to nurture an enduring partnership in which rigorous research informs legislative decision making, while civil society enriches parliamentary deliberations with practical experience. I'm sure whether your leaders are here, take note. The efforts we'll be making to link you directly to the people so that you can get the evidence of practical living by insisting that at least you should have offices, national offices at your constituency, not party. Of an open parliament plan. I have a copy here. And the establishment of a multi-stakeholder parliamentary open government steering committee. And I chair the committee as a co-chair with a civil society leader, the big boss of PN Africa. And we are the co-chairs. Now, I see this as comprising equal representation from Parliament and civil society. And this reflects our determination to ensure that transparency and civil and citizen participation become enduring features of our democratic governance rather than temporary initiatives. Besides, we have expanded opportunities for direct citizen engagement through innovations such as the electronic petitions platform. I want the department to take this seriously I receive on daily basis a lot of petitions from the country directly to me, in spite of the fact that even in our standing orders, we have made room for how these should be channeled. Petitions are to be channeled through your representatives, the members of parliament, who then bring it to our attention. And I will admit it for the business committee to schedule for the attention of the House. And when it is put on the order paper, then I can draw attention of the House for the member to stand up to present the petition. Then we will send the petition to the petitions committee. We have a petitions committee now in Parliament, and that petitions committee will now delve into the matter and report to the House to take action. These are things that should be made known to our brothers and sisters, not only in academia, but in civil society and the citizens as a whole. So we have this electronic petitions platform, and the details are there for any person who wants to petition Parliament to pass through. We have the live broadcast of parliamentary proceedings across digital media, and we also have the Open Parliament Week. The recent restructuring of the former Public Affairs Department into specialized directorates for media relations, public engagement, the Visitors Center, the Citizens Bureau, and broadcasting further demonstrates Parliament's commitment to making its work more accessible, transparent, and responsive to the people we serve. However, these reforms are not ends in themselves. They are part of a broader vision of building a parliament that listens, learns, and leads through meaningful engagement with citizens and stakeholders. I want to identify the organizers of this fora for attention. And I'm informed it was done by the Citizens Bureau. I just want to dilate a bit on the Citizens Bureau to try and clarify some turf wars and some confusion among those departments. Please, the progress we have made in advancing openness and citizen participation would not have been possible without strengthening the institutional mechanisms that connect Parliament with the people. Our foremost step in this direction was the birth of the Citizens Bureau of Parliament, whose contribution to today's program, as I indicated earlier on, deserves special recognition. Well, those of you who attended something international, maybe you didn't learn that in primary school we were taught clap, clap, clap together, clap, clap again. Clapping is an exercise, clap, clap again. Eh? Because you attended something international. So some of these things, you've lost them. And a health personnel will assist me to explain to you that clapping is healthy. Hello? It's only our kings who say kings and queens don't clap. But for us, let's use it as one of the ways of exercising. Particularly so as we sit long hours just talking to each other and not exercising the body. I like clapping a lot. And I know the benefits. I can share that with you later. So, our foremost step in this direction, as I stated, was the birthing of the Citizens Bureau of Parliament, whose contribution we have just noted. The Citizens Bureau, as the name suggests, please, those who work there, public affairs, listen. The Citizens Bureau, as the name suggests, and the name Bureau originates from the Latin word bura, in French, bourre, which referred to a woven cloth, and it was used as a table mat. That etymology developed into what we now refer to as an office with a desk. It represents a specialized unit. I initially talked about woven cloth, all the threads coming together to make one piece, which is a cloth. So it's a specialized unit or office nested in a larger subdivision of strategic institution for democratic engagement. And this aimed at ensuring that Parliament remains informed by experiences, aspirations, and concerns of the people. It represents the making of the work of Parliament more accessible, transparent, and better understood. I have worked in some of those areas, and I'll refer some to you. Not only does the Bureau communicate Parliament's work to citizens, explaining the legislative processes, committee activities, and parliamentary decisions in ways that encourage public understanding and participation. It also provides Parliament with an oiled vehicle to convey the perspectives of citizens, civil society organizations, research institutions, and other stakeholders to inform parliamentary deliberation. In this way, the Bureau serves as a bridge between Parliament and the public, promoting dialogue, strengthening trust, and reinforcing democratic accountability. I'm sure you are all aware of the role played by the Bureau of National Investigation. You are aware of the FBI. You are aware of the former Central Bureau of Statistics. I worked there in 1981. Central Bureau of Statistics. And so, when you look at the concept of a bureau and the practice, it's a collection or storage for easy access. It's a renewing of information and other materials that will be accessed, readily available to be accessed by the institution or the general public. It's about sustainability. It's about linkage. So the bureau we establish in Parliament is the one that is to receive and to collect all what we are talking about into the electronic system that we are putting in place there. Bureau, are you listening? That is the role you are to play. You are not the one to go out to be engaging. You are the one to be there so that anytime any person, any civil society organization, research or whatever they want information, or members of Parliament, they can easily access it. You put it in such a way that it's open, it's readily available, it's easier to understand. And you provide that to everybody. And so my brothers in the civil society, think tanks and the rest, consider and just press the destiny and get the information. But when the units or departments of parliament, including members and committees, want to go out to do any activity, they can easily access it from you, and they are the people who go out to engage, led by the department called public engagement, or those dealing with the media relations, or if it is to be aired to broadcast, that unit is there. So I don't see why there's this confusion and there's this struggle for theft. I don't understand it. And I've been telling you people, yesterday we engaged the whole subdivision. We now have it as a subdivision. I held a meeting with them. And I tried to explain this to them. This is what is expected to be done. We don't want people to come running around the whole of parliament looking for information. You just go to one point. It's there. You don't even need to come. Just press the button and the information will show for you to use. That is what will make our parliament open, accessible, transparent, and the accountability will come because everything is available to all of us. Please, can we take this concept and practice it? Because this bureau occupies a central place in implementing Parliament's Open Parliament Initiative under the Open Government Partnership Framework. And you know we are the engine in this Open Government Partnership Framework. Our members are very active there, and they meet the executive group, and always, whether domestic or international, we participate actively in it. So this bureau is so important that we cannot toy with it. Let me emphasize this. The bureau coordinates the development, implementation, and monitoring of Parliament's commitments to transparency, public participation, and accountability, working closely with both parliamentary committees and civil society partners. Just recently, I tried to access the report on the monitoring of parliaments in Africa by PN Africa and his group, and my attention was drawn to some areas that were found wanting. With that information, I quickly got in touch with these departments, and yesterday I was so happy that immediately on our broadcasting, I saw the lines that things like the order paper and votes and proceedings are now all being captured into the platforms. This otherwise were overlooked, and the report drew my attention to it. These are some of the things we want to see in reality, not just talk like I'm doing. We want to see it in action. So, distinguished participants, institutions must endure beyond leaders. And you know it, speakers change so often. And that's one of the challenges we have with the Conference of Speakers and Presidents of African Legislatures. As president, almost every year, I get a different team. Not many countries have parliament like Ghana. And so many of the countries, when the president looks at your face and is not smiling, he can just cause your removal. It has happened in many countries recently. And they bring some new faces who have no knowledge about what has happened before, because many of the parliaments are not that structured to have records and to have some units or departments handling these matters to even brief the incoming speaker. And because our system of transition is such that there are no handing over notes, and that's why we have that parliament transition bill before the House. we have to institutionalize this and make sure that the notes are always available for the incoming speaker to go through and know where we came from and where we are and where we are expected to go. Then with the fresh ideas, the person could improve upon what the person has met. So we need to have this institutionalized. Members of parliament also come and go. Governments change with every electoral cycle. Yet the relationship between parliament and the people must remain constant. That the Citizens Bureau provides the institutional continuity required to sustain that relationship. Sometimes you ask me questions on the floor. We want guidance from speaker. We want a ruling from speaker. Then I try to look back whether there were earlier precedents on these areas. And there's nothing, no documentary evidence for me to go through. And so we started doing that. And we are coming out with documents on these matters. The path I'm setting might be rough. Future speakers will come and put asphalt. And later on, it could be better. I think that is the way to go. So, we have to properly resource and empower the Citizens Bureau to continue to strengthen public confidence in Parliament and ensure that engagement with citizens remains an integral part of parliamentary practice rather than the initiative of an administration. If not, when I leave, that will be the end of it. And our friends, our partners in civil society, in academia, in the media, and the rest will let wondering as to where to go. Now, why these your committees? The economic governance and public financial management. And I'm happy that all of you are represented here, including the Ways and Means Committee. Not the one that Ghanaians know. And I'm happy that the attendance is good this morning. And there are some friends I've missed. I just heard of Kweku Kwaten. Where is he? He's taking leave. He stepped out. Yes, he's one of the MPs with a conscience. You know, very solid. Very, very solid. He takes a position, you can't buy him. And he's not that partisan as many of you are. In fact, even if you are a partisan, I'll be happy. What comes from your parties are not party positions. There are some cabals that take positions and try to implement it against sometimes their own philosophy. You know, me, I don't support that kind of politics. So, ladies and gentlemen, economic governance and public financial management are among the most consequential responsibilities entrusted to Parliament. Decisions on taxation, borrowing, public expenditure, debt sustainability, and the allocation of national resources shape the direction of our economy and profoundly influence the lives of every Ghanaian. More than many other things, money matters. It determines whether businesses can grow, whether young people can find employment, and whether communities receive essential public services. That explains why our national resources must be managed responsibly for present and future generations. And Parliament is charged with the onerous responsibility of ensuring prudence and responsibility in managing our finite resources. This guard dog rule is Herculean because governments are addicted to spending. It's even worse in Africa. When you send somebody to do something for you, to buy something, and the person comes back and you want to ask for the accounts, then it means that you started a conflict. They get angry. Why? You don't trust me? It's not about me not trusting you. Why should you ask me that question? If you are to be trusted, what is it that you want to hide? Bring it out. So we have a serious task as a parliament in this direction. As a parliament, we all have to doze off for a second, and government goes on a shopping spree at the expense of the fundamentals of life. And you all know the fundamentals of life. Air. This air we breathe in, we take it for granted. Water. And because we decided to pollute God's clean water, we now talk about potable water. Food to eat. Now we are accepting anything from anywhere. And so even seeds that we are using now, when you harvest, you can't replant those seeds because GMO and the rest have come in. Shelter. Just a roof over our heads. Clothes to wear. Healthcare, education, and housing. These are basic things that should be available to every human being. Unfortunately, that is not our experience so far. But we also know that the untrained guard dog is a danger to even its master. That is the reason why we are here. If we are the guard dogs and we are not trained, then we are very serious danger to our own people. Please, so take this session seriously. Effective oversight requires more than access to official reports and government submissions. It requires reliable evidence, independent analysis, and informed public perspectives. Our brothers and sisters in the academia, in the civil society, in think tanks, research, and the rest are better placed to have this knowledge and expertise than us in Parliament. And that's why we are bringing them here, so that we can learn from them. So it requires us as a Parliament, as such an important institution, to understand not only what policies are intended to achieve, but also how they affect communities across the country. So today's initiative is not simply meant to exchange information, but to establish a culture in which knowledge, evidence, and citizens' experience consistently inform the work of Parliament. And how do we build this partnership for evidence to inform governance in the country? Please, one lesson that must be loudly drummed home is the fact that team policing is best strategy for safeguarding the public purse. Therefore, Parliament cannot be the solo police of our purse. This is precisely why Parliament must cultivate strong and enduring partnerships with academia, civil society, and other knowledge institutions. For instance, a national budget may indicate the resources allocated to education, healthcare, or infrastructure. Research institutions can assess whether those allocations reflect sound economic priorities, while civil society can demonstrate whether the intended beneficiaries are receiving the expected services. You are aware of the example of the ministers of health. And at an international conference, I won't mention the country, the Minister for Health decided to hold a dinner for his colleagues at his residence. And when they got there, it was quite palatial. And so they were very happy. And they asked the minister how he managed to construct that residence. And he asked them whether when they were coming to his house, they saw one hospital along the road. And they said yes. And he said 10%. You understand that? 10%. And our colleagues from Africa learned the lesson. I won't mention the other country in Africa who decided to host the conference. After the conference, he also decided to invite his colleagues to his residence for a dinner. And when they got there, wow. He says, but so how did you build this? He said, when you were coming to the residence, my house, didn't you see the hospital along the road? And they said, no. He said, 100%. Now you understand. I led the construction of the European hospital, now called Ridge Hospital, which is now the regional hospital for Greater Accra. After a few years, one of my colleagues in Parliament came to me and introduced himself as the lawyers who drew the agreements for that hospital. I had no knowledge about it. I was the Minister for Health. So I said, but why are you telling me now? You should have drawn my attention when I was the Minister for Health. Well, I was the Minister for only 1 year. He said, well, I didn't ask for any decision. But I didn't know the consultants. Truly. I dealt with my chief director and the technical people. My focus was to make sure that the hospital was completed, because the pressure on Kolibu at that time was unbearable. So I did not. I recall a gentleman came to me and asked me to recommend some names to be employed there to work. I said, I didn't think about it, but now I'll try to consider. He never returned, and I never recommended any person. And so people come to me and I say, so you got that hospital constructed. In fact, I cut the sword with our late illustrious president's wife, Her Excellency Nadu Mills. And on almost every week, I went there to see what was happening. And we did the first phase. And we arranged for the second phase, which was later aborted, because there was change of government. And there was some scrutiny, trying to investigate whether it was inflated or whatever. Finally, reports came, nothing came. The timelines for the second expired, and that is why it's still in that state. By this time, I shall build some mansions, and I'll be inviting you for dinners. You come and enjoy with me. Are you going to teach me that culture? It's too late in the day. I can't learn it. So please, we need these partners to be able to hold the almighty executive arm and the other government institutions to account. And these research institutions, the academia and the rest, are the reliable partners for us to do so. Similarly, legislation may appear comprehensive in design, but its true effectiveness can only be measured through evidence gathered during implementation and the experiences of the citizens it intended to serve. Imani does very well in this direction, and I read a lot of articles from them. They are usually not together on everything. They disagree a lot sometimes, but there's always a lot pearl of wisdom and information to learn from them. I will want to recommend all of you to read their research papers, well-informed research papers. I'm happy to hear that Franklin Kujo is here. Are you there? Yes. He's very troublesome, but he's a good man. And he's marketing Ghana globally in very high, or I should say at very high places. Please applaud his efforts. So for the partnership with academia and civil society organizations to succeed, however, engagements must be founded on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and an unwavering commitment to the national interest. Parliament must remain open to constructive engagement, recognizing that informed external perspectives strengthen rather than diminish its institutional effectiveness. Likewise, academia and civil society must continue to engage Parliament responsibly, offering objective research, practical solutions, and constructive criticism that contribute meaningfully to public policy and democratic governance. Ways and Means Committee, please, we need you. Not only to partner the executive to raise the necessary funds, but also to make sure that we are able to finance these civil society organizations and think tanks from domestic resources. We cannot expect them to be dependent on outside resources and say that we are independent. That is contradiction in terms. I cannot be feeding you and you say you are independent from me. When I cut the feed, then that is your end. Please, let's think about it. Because we are allowing many of these things still to depend on the largesse or the charitable spirit of some people outside Ghana. I don't think it's good for us. Ladies and gentlemen, for this tripartite union to succeed, constructive scrutiny should never be misconstrued as hostility towards Parliament. On the contrary, it must be viewed as one of the defining characteristics of a confident and accountable legislator. After all, a Parliament that welcomes informed criticism demonstrates confidence in its constitutional role. A Parliament that listens to diverse perspectives is better equipped to enact effective legislation. And a Parliament that responds thoughtfully to legitimate public concerns earns the trust and confidence of the citizens it serves. As leaders, we must never lose sight of the fact that citizens are not passive recipients of public policy. They are stakeholders in national development, whose experiences, aspirations, and ideas enrich public decision-making. We must also note that the legitimacy of Parliament derives not only from elections, but from the continuous confidence and participation of the people in between elections. After all, democratic participation does not begin and end at the ballot box. It continues through sustained engagement with public institutions, informed public discourse, and constructive contributions to the development of national policy. I just want to emphasize that this partnership is a shared responsibility. And so, one message I hope we'll all take away from today's engagement is this one. The success of this initiative will not be measured by today's deliberations alone, but by what we do after we leave this room. Certainly, Workshops cannot transform the relationship between parliament and citizens. Seminars cannot institutionalize evidence-informed policy making. Engagements cannot by themselves strengthen democratic accountability. What will make the difference is a sustained culture of dialogue, one in which parliament, academia, and civil society engage one and quite often regularly to share knowledge and to continuously work together to address the nation's challenges. Our objective in Parliament must be to institutionalize a sustained partnership so that it becomes an integral part of Parliament's legislative and oversight processes. So over to you, the departments are mentioned. This must be done throughout the budget cycle. It has also been done during the legislative scrutiny and the exercise of oversight. Parliament should continue to assess the best available evidence that will benefit our insights and our work to the realities on the ground. In this regard, I encourage all committees represented here, particularly the Committee on Economy and Development, the Budget Committee, the Ways and Means Committee, the Committee on Independent Constitutional Bodies, Petitions Committee, to view today's engagement not as an isolated event, but as the beginning of a continuous institutional relationship with our partners, academia, civil society organization, and policy think tank. I equally encourage our academic institutions, the research organizations, and civil society to partner to maintain their engagement with Parliament by providing timely, objective, and policy-relevant research. I think the Statistical Service have promised to do that, and they've met us a number of times, and we also have the week which we celebrate in this matter. So please, let's aspire to reach the highest standards of a Parliament that is transparent, accountable, and an institution of integrity. With this, permit me to conclude. I wish to express my profound appreciation to the organizers, the Civil Citizens Bureau, for its leadership in organizing this important engagement. But I've told you next time, supply them with the material. Let the Public Engagement Department lead the organization of the event. I also want to commend the Institute for Statistical, Social, and Economic Research, our development partners, particularly the World Bank and the United Kingdom Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, as well as all participating academic institutions, civil society organizations, and members for their commitment to strengthen democratic governance through dialogue and contribution. The feedback I'm getting from our support from the World Bank and the FCD office is that there are a few challenges you are encountering. You haven't approached me yet. I think we should talk to resolve those challenges. We can't afford to lose the $1.8 million support program. We don't want it to be a one shot. We want it to be continuous until we are able to wean ourselves from your support. So whatever challenges you are having, please come forward. We can sit together and sort them out. I want to assure all of you that the Parliament of Ghana remains steadfast in its commitment to openness, accountability, and meaningful public participation. We will continue to create opportunities for citizens and institutions to contribute to our legislative and oversight responsibility, because a Parliament that listens is a Parliament that leads effectively. It is my sincere hope that the partnership consummated here today will continue to flourish and evolve into lasting partnerships that enrich parliamentary deliberations, strengthen economic governance, and contribute to sound public financial management for the benefit of present and future generations. And let me seize this opportunity to urge us to build a lasting partnership founded on trust, guided by evidence, and dedicated to the advancement of the national interest, the common good. Together, let us strengthen Parliament. Together, we can deepen democratic accountability. Together, we can promote sound economic governance and responsible public financial management. And together, we can build a stronger and more prosperous Ghana for generations to come. It is now my singular honor and privilege on your behalf to declare the information sharing session between academia, civil society, and the committees of Parliament on economic governance and public financial management duly launched. I thank all of you for your endurance, your patience, and your attention.
Thank you very much, the Right Honorable Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that he deserves another round of applause. May we please resume our seats. Thank you very much. We're grateful to you, Right Honorable Speaker. Anytime we listen to you, we learn something new, just that we are not able to retain all of them. Thank you. We're grateful. Respectfully, we have just entered the second section of this program, and that is going to be the technical session. Please don't take the leave of us, because we're going to have a very short presentation from ISE, after which we would have some panel discussion. And that is where we have brought in all those who matter in the area of economic governance and financial management, discuss the very issues we are here to gain more insight in. Respectfully, before I invite our presenter, may I again acknowledge the presence of the chairman of the Economy and Development Committee, Honorable Eric Affle, Member of Parliament for Amenfi West. And I was told he was the first person to be here this morning, but unfortunately, I was not able to acknowledge him earlier. Please, a round of applause for him. Thank you, Honorable. We're grateful. We also have Honorable Al-Hassan Suleiman, a Member of Parliament for Yonyo. Yes, wait, good, thank you. We also have Honorable Dominic Nampari, Member of Parliament for Senate East and Ranking Member Parliamentary Affairs and Member of the Ways and Means. Today we're having more of the Ways and Means here. Please, a round of applause for him as well. And respectfully, may I also acknowledge Professor Priscilla Chamesi Bafo, Senior Lecturer, University of Ghana, the Department of Economics. She's here with us. Please, a round of applause for her. It is not easy to see women climbing such ladders. Please, a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, again for her. And again, we also have a team of professors and researchers from ISE. And may I acknowledge the presence of Professor Amafeni. She's here, and she is the head of Economic Division of the Institute of Statistical, Social, and Economic Research. Professor, please, a round of applause for her. And I also spotted Dr. Gifty Adika, African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, also here. Yes, Dr. Gifty Adika is with ASEPA. This is where I invite Professor Robert Darko Osei, the director of ISE, to give us just about 15 minutes presentation. So please, a round of applause for him. Please, let's keep acknowledging and also commending him for doing this for us.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Permit me to stand on existing protocol and then continue. As you heard, the time allotted to me has been reduced It's now 15 minutes, but we'll try, and then, given that we have the Ways and Means Committee here, I think we can go over some of the things very quickly. You know, when the Ways and Committee came up initially, I quickly Googled to find out what the Ways and Committee means, and now I know what Ways and Means mean. Okay, so what I intend to do is essentially just share an overview of the state of the economy in 2025 with a view to proffering some views or reflections on the kinds of things that all of us here, stakeholders here, need to be mindful of in terms of taking our country to the next level that we all want to see it at. Of course, it's always important when you are reflecting on the state of any small open economy like ours, what happens in on the global stage, because it has implications for small open economies such as ours. So here, all what this is saying is that there weren't significant headwinds in respect of from the global economy and in respect of the Ghana economy in 2025. And indeed, we also make the point, particularly in respect of unemployment situation globally and how we fit in from a Ghana perspective. We make the point here that generally, if you look comparatively at unemployment for our country vis-a-vis others, it gives the impression that unemployment is not a problem, right? Because the rates are significantly lower. But I think that the point we would like to make here is that in our situation, we should be more concerned about the quality of jobs and underemployment rather than the unemployment in itself. And it's largely because, of course, for extremely poor people, we cannot afford to be unemployed, and where the social systems are not very well developed. And so for some people, unemployment is not a choice that they can make. So from a growth perspective, again, 2025, we did considerably well. Overall, GDP growth of 6% was much higher than what prevailed in the world. But of course, the sources of the growth were quite restricted. And so you find that sources such as the ICT was actually quite dominant in contributing towards the achievement of the growth that we saw. So the services sector and indeed agriculture and largely from the cocoa sector were important in driving that growth. And remember what I said from the beginning in respect of what pertained on the global economy. So there weren't significant headwinds. Indeed, you could say that for cocoa, there probably were some tailwinds from the global economy in respect of how we performed. So growth generally, we did well, but it was coming from pockets of subsectors within the country. And these typically, and later on we'll discuss some of the reflections when you have growth coming from these limited subsectors of your economy. Now, in terms of the ways and means, again, this is something that, given the recent discussions over the last week, most of us would have been engaged in directly or indirectly. But we did see significant fiscal improvements or consolidation in 2025. And clearly that was a positive thing. How did we achieve that? We achieved that through expenditure tightening. Okay, we held back in respect of expenditure, and indeed, even though, okay, thank you. Even though we did hold back in respect of expenditure, we should be mindful that holding back on expenditure also has implications for what you can achieve as a country. But the expenditure is also held back because of how much you can also generate within your economy. Now, for our revenue GDP ratio of around 16%, what it just means is that there is a limit to which you can actually spend. Okay, so fiscal space is a problem. And if you want to then consolidate from a fiscal perspective, i.e. you want to hold your deficits, then it's expenditure that you have to be concerned about. There are other dimensions, and I'll speak to it later on when I share some reflections as well. But generally, I think the point that one needs to make here is that we did do quite well from a fiscal perspective, okay? From a monetary side as well, similar story, okay? So inflation, again, the inflation story has been said over and over again. We've reduced inflation significantly, currently around just above 5%. But we have also been able to hold the exchange rate and make it more stable. So, I mean, these graphs are quite clear. You see before July of 2025, where there were large volatility or swings in the exchange rate movements. Okay, but beyond that period, we see that the volatility has significantly reduced. And this is a good thing, and it has had implications also for our interest rates, repayments of debt, and indeed the total debt itself, the debt stock itself, has also been positively impacted. However, I think one of the things which is important to mention when you are discussing the monetary outcomes is the fact that we need to sustain the gains that we have made there, because you still find that the interest spread, the difference between your savings rate and your lending rates, still remains quite high. And that is a reflection of the risks associated with credit. And again, it's not surprising if you take your non-performing loans, generally, they still remain quite high, which means that operations from a business perspective can be quite problematic. So I think the point here is that we have consolidated from a fiscal point. We have been able to achieve significant positive gains from a monetary side, but there is still more work to be done. In other words, we are not out of the woods. There is also something about debt investment and growth that I think it's important to mention. Debt financing on itself is usually not a bad thing. It's what it is used for. Because if it is used for investments that confers positive returns, then the positive returns can more than pay for the debt, so that over time you can grow. However, generally we see that our debt has not always translated into improved capital spending. In fact, compared to sub-Saharan Africa, where the capital spending is, even though it has come down, it's still between 4 to 6% of GDP. For Ghana, it's less than 1%. less than 2% of GDP. In fact, when I showed the fiscal data, you could see that the capital spending still remains quite low. That again has implications if we want to be able to move from the growth path that we currently are on to a higher growth path that will then result in improvements in employment and confer significant positive welfare dividends. Okay. And so this here is just showing that generally over time, the correlation or relationship between your debt, the growth in your debt, and capital spending hasn't necessarily been positive. And indeed, you cannot find any causal effects between debt and capital spending, which in effect can mean that even though we've taken debt over the years, it hasn't always been to finance capital spending. Of course, you could ask the question, oh, but we took this loan to finance this road. Because money is fungible, it's the total that you need to be more concerned about. Okay. So these are essentially, from a macro perspective, we've seen positive outcomes from a macro perspective, and in part, I think the IMF program has helped, but indeed, the deliberate policy of the consolidating our fiscals and indeed monetary has also been quite important. So I'll share briefly the some external developments as well, which we think is very important for our reflection, because that then allows us to also look at what it is we produce, how we produce it, and whether indeed it speaks to transformation of the economy of Ghana. Trade balance improved significantly in 2025. And I think one of the good things that we've seen over the last 1 year is the building up of international reserves, which then means that we are able to be a bit more resilient in terms of external shocks. Okay. Now here is where, and this is more of a long-term perspective. We look at how complex our production processes are as a country over the years. So there is an index, the Economic Complexity Index, which enables us to gauge. And the cool thing with that index is that you can then benchmark yourself against other countries, okay? And generally, for all the components, and there are 4 components, even though we just showed 3 of them here, for all the 4 components, Ghana is not doing well. Indeed, our current rank of 124 out of the 145 countries that is in that database, our current ranking is worse than it was 20 years ago. Now here we are talking about the capabilities of producing today's goods and services for the world economy. Okay? So clearly we are not transforming our economy. And this reflects in the kinds of things that we actually export by commodity, dominated by raw material exports, okay? Yet still, if you take our imports are dominated by products that have a high complexity. Indeed, here what it shows is that the products for Ghana, the ones that Ghana actually produce, are largely not very complex. They are very low complexity. Okay, so if it's a color green, then it's high complexity. So predominantly, the things we produce in Ghana have very low complexity. Okay, so my 15 minutes is not up. Okay, so I think it's important for us to share some reflections, and so I'll just share some reflections and then bring my presentation to a close. And my colleagues are here to answer all the questions. Okay, so the low complexity essentially means, and the fact that we, in terms of the ranking, we are getting worse. Other countries are doing or moving much quicker than we are doing. It reflects a lack of transformation in the true sense of the word. And in order to reverse that, I think we need to be very deliberate about addressing structural transformation issues. We share just a few of them here, and indeed this is just the beginning of the conversations. And we can, of course, help tighten some of these things in what we call the great growth diagnostics analysis as well with our partners. Research and development. Clearly, we need to do more on that field. If you look at the complexities and the productions of the things that we produce, to be able to actually compete, we need to be investing more in R&D. Infrastructure investments, absolutely critical, not just roads, but power. Okay? The business ecosystem which needs sustained improvements. And I'll use two examples. One I have already touched on, which is the interest spread, okay, which suggests that credit risks still remain quite problematic. The other has to do with our fiscals as well. We know that, and we saw from the fiscals that we have quite limited fiscal space. We need to spend. We are saying that we have a high infrastructure gap. How do you then marry improving that infrastructure gap against the limited fiscal deficits? So typically, you can always then go to your tariff rates, right, in order to generate more revenue. And that will suggest can be quite problematic and does not always result in improvement in total revenue or your revenue effort. Indeed, if you look at our tax revenue effort as opposed to the average tariff rates for Ghana, we are much higher than what our revenue suggests we should be, which will suggest that within the fiscals, we need to rethink our tariff rates if we want to really encourage business investments and indeed use private sector to catch up in respect of improving our complexity. So Ghana's economy, we've seen very strong rebound. Both monetary and fiscal outcomes have been commendable in the last year. But the markers for transformation, in our view, are not entirely too complementary. We need to do more on capital spending. We said that even within sub-Saharan Africa, we are below the average for sub-Saharan Africa. The real challenge, of course, is what the source of public finances. In other words, how you create the fiscal space. But also your efficiency of spending. And so, of course, and the Right Honorable Speaker just touched on 100% versus a 10% hospital, okay? So that has implications for your fiscal space. And you can create fiscal space by being more efficient. And so thinking about the efficiency of spending does matter. But also for businesses to help businesses appropriate their investments, I think we need to also be more reflective of the business environment or the ecosystem that businesses operate in. So 15 minutes exactly. Sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Prof, please, I think we can give him another round of applause. Actually, they had prepared for a 45-minute presentation, but he's able to do this in less than 20 minutes. Please, a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, again. Once for Professor Robert Darko Osei, Director of ISE. Thank you very much. This is the point where we'll have the panel discussion to have all our stalwarts in the area of economic governance and public financial management to discuss issues of national importance. Respectfully, I have the pleasure of inviting a moderator for this session. The moderator for this session is a distinguished and accomplished Ghanaian development economist and academic, serving as a research fellow at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISA, University of Ghana. She holds a PhD in economics, MPhil in economics, and a Bachelor of Arts in economics with geography and resource development. Ladies and gentlemen, her expertise spans across the areas of economic policy, international trade, agricultural value chain, gender and development, institutional economics, and education. Her work has informed and contributed to national and international policy discussion on inclusive growth, trade, education, and sustainable development. She is widely recognized for her interdisciplinary approach to development, research, and advanced economic transformation and social inclusion in Ghana and across Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as I welcome Dr. Nana Ama Asante Poku from ISA. Please, a round of applause for her. She is a woman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give her a microphone.
She's a member of the Presidential Advisory.
Okay. Okay, so who is our first panelist for this morning's panel discussion on economic governance and public financial management? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a panelist, and this panelist is a founding president and chief executive officer of the Imani Center for Policy and Education, a globally renowned think tank dedicated to advancing the institution of a free society across Africa. Imani has consistently been ranked among the first 5 most influential think tanks in the sub-Saharan Africa and among the top 100 think tanks across the world. In recognition of his leadership and contribution to public policy, he was named a young global leader by the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, inducted as a fellow of the Africa Leadership Network and the only think tank leader featured in the Africa Report magazine's prestigious Top 50 awards list. Ladies and gentlemen, he is an alumnus of the Harvard Kennedy School, the Atlas Economic Research Foundation think tank MBA program, and a Montreal Economic Institute think tank training program. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Land Economy. The Right Honorable Speaker, during the just ended World Cup, I witnessed the panelists I'm about to introduce do some dance in the kakalika rhythm. And that was when I concluded that you could compose the music and introduce the dance. But the beauty of the dance actually comes from the diversity of the notes through the dance. I saw him doing his own thing. Ladies and gentlemen, join me, welcome Dr. Franklin Kujo.
Why is he calling you doctor?
Thank you, I'm very grateful. He said he's not a doctor yet, because reading all this, I thought he was even a professor, but he said he's not a doctor yet. So Mr. Franklin Kujo before the GTEC comes after us. Thank you. May I also acknowledge our second panelist, and she is a Ghanaian economics researcher, an academic serving as a senior lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana. She holds a PhD in economics from the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom, an MPhil in economics, and a Bachelor of Arts in economics. She specializes in labor and development economics, applied microeconometrics, poverty and inequality, and the economics of education and skills development. She has published extensively in leading international journals, and her scholarly work has contributed significantly to evidence-based policy making in Ghana and across Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, with research addressing labor market outcomes, social protection, digital financing, energy poverty, and human capital development. Join me as I welcome Professor Priscilla Chomesi Bafo. Please to join the panelists for me. Thank you. There's another one. Okay, so we have a member of parliament to join our distinguished panelists. Yes, good. Our next panelist, ladies and gentlemen, is a Ghanaian politician and a lawyer. He is currently a third-term member of parliament for Afuasi Eyirebi constituency in Ghana's eastern region, where he has prioritized youth training, health, education, and infrastructure. He previously served as Ghana's Minister for Housing and earlier as a Minister for Information. He holds an MBA in marketing from the University of Ghana Business School, a degree in commerce from the University of Cape Coast, and a law degree from Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GEMPA. Our panelist additionally holds a certificate in public policy analysis from London School of Economics and a certificate in public leadership from Oxford University. Our panelist, ladies and gentlemen, once again is a strong advocate for good governance, economic development, and youth employment. Respectfully, this morning we have our panelist, who is again the chairman of the Center for Policy Scrutiny, an Accra-based think tank, and the law firm Nkrumah and Associates. This morning he is a ranking member of the Committee of Economy and Finance. Respectfully, join me as I welcome our own Member of Parliament for Afuasi Eyirebi, Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. Thank you very much. So, Right Honorable Speaker, we have our panelists, we have our moderator, and so this is where I take my seat. Please, after the discussion, we would have a question and answer session where if you have any question, please, you put up your hand, then your question will be duly directed to the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we'll go straight into our panel discussion. We have just 30 minutes, so I don't want to be a teacher here where I interrupt you. So I would ask that you make your submissions as succinct as possible, and then we can work within the time that has been allotted. So my first question will go to each one of you, and based on what we've heard this morning, the presentation that Prof. Dakwose gave, and then what each one of us knows about the Ghanaian economy, I would like to find out from each one of you, what is the most pressing economic or fiscal issue that you think Parliament should prioritize over the next 12 months, and why? 12 months. And why? So I would love to start, ladies first. So I'll start with Prof. Chumesi Bafo.
Okay, thank you very much, Nana, and good morning, Right Honorable Speaker and all members present. Essentially, given the presentation we've had, I'm sure we've all been privy to the mid-year budget review. The main message is that, yes, the economy of Ghana has attained significant stabilization. And so, I mean, all the vulnerable spots that we used to see in terms of price stabilization, in terms of the currency, in terms of our debt levels, now you see that all these indicators are trending in the right direction. Fiscal consolidation is strong. But the key note is that we are exiting an IMF program. And so when you look at the note and the mood in the country, you see that there is a conviction for us to be on the right track. And so for the first time, for example, we are signing on to the policy coordination instrument, which is exiting the program, but you still have to submit yourself to some external scrutiny, because we know that the country has been on this trajectory before. And so for me, I think that the oversight responsibility that Parliament needs to exercise is to focus on the fiscal consolidation. Because we still need to keep our eyes on the debt levels in terms of debt sustainability. And then when you look there, you realize that, yes, the targets are also quite enthusiastic from my perspective, 40% debt to GDP ratio. I think that as a developing country, we should have a bit of room to maneuver, so long as the debts are being channeled into productive sources of the economy. That should not be too bad. And so for me, the oversight responsibility is critical. And when you look at, I mean, the performance so far till June, you realize that revenue mobilization has also been a bit of a challenge. And so there, the oversight responsibility I would want to see is that what policy reforms in terms of the emphasis has been on tax compliance, right? And also in terms of digitalization of the whole revenue mobilization drive and all. And so the responsibility is on Parliament to interrogate and to look at the reforms that will engender a lot of resources into the basket so that we are able to generate more. We cannot spend if we do not generate, because the consolidation must be kept, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Chumesi Bafo. Mr. Kujo.
Yes, can you hear me? I have a good morning, and thank you so much for, thank you, Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, and the entire parliamentary leadership for this initiative. That's an interesting question. I think, this government boasts of fiscal correction, right? If you look at the fact that they've managed to, as it were, convince us that there's some, should I call it, divine opportunity, and indeed practical, and in the same vein, practicing, should I call it, and holding people in fellowship in order to ensure that monies that are spent by MDAs are actually accounted for, and through that, There's this term he now calls, the minister now calls commitment authorization. And I thought for once, this is a very important policy which must be watched. Not only because it's been mentioned, but I've actually felt it as well. In fact, I should tell you a little story. So, you know, we're part of SAL. You remember SAL, which was obviously rendered like an orphan. So after this, this year I went to the debt fund to, as it were, lobby for some projects for some of my for my school, St. Mary's Seminary. And look, they told me we'll support you, but you need to get contractors who can actually pay ahead before the project will be delivered. I said, I don't even know any contractor, so what am I going to do? And I understood that to mean that, look, a lot of things have gone wrong in the past, where people just dish out contracts here and there. And I think, for me, even though I was taken aback, I went to see the finance minister, and in fact, not that I saw him, and we had a meeting, and he mentioned this whole thing. I said, okay, now I now know where this whole thing is coming from. And I just respected that. I think it is important that we watch that particular policy, not because it could be gamed, politicians are politicians, but also because we think that if it is done properly, we'll be saving the country a lot of money. A lot of projects are conceptualized, but sometimes we don't even go further to, do the economics well. And in that same vein, as we are watching commitment authorization, we should extend that to the big push agenda, and in particular the express road, the Kumasi, Accra Kumasi express route. I haven't seen I've not seen any paperwork to show me that this project is going to be constructed based on, real numbers. The minister says he's raised about $1.7 billion already. The project is likely to cost $4 billion US. But I've asked him for details. I've not seen any drawings. I've not seen anything, and it's a bit worrying. And so we need to see those calculations and then make judgments as to whether we are spending money properly. Because that's $4 billion is a lot of money, and it can change the economy if you spend it well. So I think, for me, commitment authorization, as part of the whole gamut of fiscal correction, which includes fiscal council, something I thought I should speak about, because we actually helped the ministry a lot in designing how the council should be set up. I mean, we did a lot of run international partners together, and then worked with the ministry to design the current scheme. And I think with that, with all the other ancillary, should I call it, related matters to fiscal correction, I think commitment authorization should be the number one thing we should be watching with regards to the expenditure on the big push Kumasi Accra Express. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kujo. Honorable Opoin Nkrumah.
Yes, Doc. So I think I'll take your question in two parts. On the fiscal side, I think the single most important thing that Parliament needs is near real-time fiscal data. I'm not going to separate revenue data or commitment data or even expenditure data. But one of the problems we have is the fact that we don't get fiscal data as early as possible so that you can then do what sort of analysis you want to do, and you can then rely on that analysis. I'll give you an example. In this mid-year review statement, if you look at the supposed expenditure target for half year, if you go to Appendix 2A, there's a different figure. If you go to paragraph 236, there's a different figure. That is even at half year. But if you want to be in a position to track on a regular basis, let's say from Parliament, and be able to exercise the kind of oversight that Prof. Priscilla is talking about, I think as a country we must get to that point where, as close as possible to real time, maybe even monthly, there's an amalgamation of the different parts of the fiscal data. You have ICOMS, you have ITAS, you have all the platforms on the revenue side. You have GIFMIS, you have Controller and Accountant General on the other side. There must be a way by which these can be brought together with the necessary API to speak to themselves, so that Professor Say can have a view, we can have a view, the government can have a view, and then when government tells you that this is how much of the budget we have executed, at least looking at the fiscals, you don't doubt it. You don't have room to question that. So on the fiscals, I think the single most important thing is near real-time fiscal data. That's what will help in terms of the oversight that we need to exercise. On the economy side broadly, I think the most important thing that Parliament will need is space to engage economic actors and consumers to understand their lived experiences of what we are publishing on the macro side. I mean, we've been in government publishing macro figures. Today, Honorable Adongo's party is in power. They are publishing macro figures. How do those macro numbers relate with the real lived experiences of the Makola market woman, the guy at Abuso kind, the child or the student, I shouldn't say child, the student who is in first year in uni or something? Oftentimes, for purposes of legislation or policy scrutiny, there's not much room. Certificate of urgency is brought in, 2 days is going, 2 a.m., as Mr. Speaker was saying, meetings going on. We don't have much room to hear from academia or from CSOs to give us a reflection on some of the things that we are even proposing, whether it's NPP or NDC, in terms of economic policy. So I think the single most important thing on the economy side is more room. We should give ourselves more room to hear from academia, from CSO, from economic actors, from consumers, so that we factor it into the policy and program prescriptions that we are coming up with in Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. So listening to you, you would say that Parliament needs near real-time fiscal data, even monthly if possible, and also the space to engage with the real lived experiences of citizens. So can I ask you, what type, this is some type of evidence that you've asked for. Can you give us, in your opinion, what is like the one thing you think if you get as a parliament, it helps you with the work that you need to do in terms of legislation, scrutinizing the budget and others?
I mean, I think as I've mentioned, on the fiscal and then on the economy, these are the single things I think we need. But I think that the anchor to all of this will be some consensus among what I'll call the governing elite. First, the political class, the civil society groups and academia must have some consensus that it is not enough to wait for April the following year to now start getting the actual data for the previous year. Today, with technology and several other systems, we can integrate and come as closely as possible to getting an understanding of it. And it doesn't matter whether it's NPP or it's NDC. And I will give you an example. So I saw Professor Say project on the screen that revenue to GDP is about 16.1. I've seen data in the annual public debt report that puts it around 15.7. And it is because the timelines keep moving, the sources of gathering keep changing. And so even data for your analysis to be able to come to a certain position sometimes becomes questionable. In fact, a lot of the academics will say that if you want the best data, wait for April, the subsequent year, because that's when you get the best data for the previous year. But I'm saying that we need a certain consensus among the governing elite that there's enough technology today to bring us to that point where we can get near real-time fiscal data. And then, as we examine that data, all of us can be on the same page about, the kind of performance that we are coming up with and what is outstanding and what needs to be done.
Thank you so much. Consensus of the governing elite. I like that. Prof. Chumesi Bafo, now that we know what kind of evidence they would love to have, My question to you is, how can researchers produce and then communicate evidence and in ways which are timely, accessible, and then useful for Parliament? I know sometimes we as researchers also depend on the government statistics, and sometimes we can't be timely enough because what we are depending on has not yet been released. But what else can we do that can help the situation as it is?
Thank you, Dr. Santiago. I mean, Kojo's message sounded like music in my ears, to be honest, because once you don't have the data, there's a lot of limitations on what you are able to do. And I mean, with technology, we should be able to be churning out, if for nothing at all, a monthly, fiscal data to be able to inform what is going on. But that notwithstanding, we still do make do with what is available, because the reality is there's nothing new under the sun. We know the data, we know the trends, and so once we have a bit of historical data with the nearest whatever present data it is, we are able to foresee and predict what is achievable in the near future. And as researchers, basically that is what you do. And usually you would find that that you will not find, unless there's a significant shock or something else, you wouldn't find a significant departure from the norm, really.
Thank you so much. Mr. Kujo, so based on what Honorable Oponkrumah and Prof. Chumesi Bafo has told us, I want to find out from the perspective of civil societies, how can civil society organization help translate research evidence into practical policy actions, while at the same time strengthening public accountability?
Okay, so I'll give you 3 examples of maybe recent examples or examples yet to come. But just this morning, I dispatched a letter to a number of ministers, a number of MPs on the Environment and Science Committee to discuss what they call the extended producer responsibility law. There's a bill that is being discussed right now by the EPA, and we think that if we want to solve these issues, the issues around pollution, and of course all the, should I call it, environmental activities we undertake that lead to the decadence in the environment, we need to focus, and we probably need to departmentalize the way we deal with the entire thing. So we thought that the best way to start off is to deal with the issue of plastics from the standpoint of the producer, right? So those who produce Guinness, all these beverage manufacturers and all of that, we've been talking to them, and now we made significant inputs into the bill already. We should be going to the AG's department, I think probably next week, and then have a conversation as to how we would ensure that those who produce plastics in this country, or those who import them, have some fiscal space to be able to contribute meaningfully to, first of all, getting a sustainable, making sure that we have sustainable use of plastics. Also, pay some sort of fine that, not a fine, pay some economic rent that obviously would make sense for the local Ghanaian industry and the government as well. So by this, what are we doing? We inserted ourselves into the conversation, by the way, to make sure that at least the right conversation is being had, because we are also mindful that the politician or when this bill comes before Parliament, I'm sure some of the parliamentarians will think that this is an opportunity to cream off these companies, and they will be charging them obnoxious rates. So we brought evidence to bear from all over the world, did the assessment, and that's going to be a guide to the Parliament to be able to have the conversation. The other thing that we did recently was when we discovered lithium, right, we had all sorts of noise was made. And I recall that the last administration, to their credit, by the way, some Abu Jinapo held a number of conversations in Parliament, invited some of us to come and speak. And I thought those conversations were useful because if those conversations were carried forward, as I think they have now been carried forward, but in a manner that was contemplated by the last administration, I think we would have had more, should I call it, not credibility, but more productive conversations around lithium. So beyond just thinking of benefiting from lithium, we thought that, look, it's better to develop a critical minerals policy. Because you see, the world is moving from, as we are transiting from what's called the fossil fuels to the, whatever they call it, green transition. It is important that once you find a significant mineral, you coalesce around the mineral and then possibly look out for more, because I'm sure they are related. And besides being related, you need to develop a critical minerals policy. So we thought beyond the conversations, why don't you, you want to talk about lithium. We were focusing on the rates initially. The current administration started off by saying, oh, we can only get 5%. We said, no, even the previous administration, even if they were lazy, they got us at 10%. Why do you want to go back to 5? Then we had a conversation, and I think eventually, Kojo, I think there's a sliding scale right now, and I think the rate is about 12%, right? Well, we still have issues, but I think there's some progress. So anyway, and I recall when the president called and said, look, Franklin, tell me exactly what we should do about this policy, about this lithium. I said, look, we need to develop a critical minerals policy, which is something we have done, and I think it's possibly going to be part of the conversations Mr. Bois and co are going to have, because we still think we need to do that. So that's another example of us trying to not necessarily insert ourselves into the conversation, but also make sure that we contribute meaningfully to the outcomes. The last example I want to give is, well, maybe even this fiscal policy stuff. You know, I recall Kojo and you were there as well when we were discussing the fiscal council, the creation of the fiscal council, right? I mean, we thought that, okay, we don't have any best practices to look up to when it comes to setting up a fiscal council. So what did we do? We collaborated with our friends in Switzerland. There's a think tank called the International Institute for Sustainable Development, and then held a number of consultations across the country, met parliamentarians, had us of input, professional economists and all of that. And we did this, we put a draft together, and I think we eventually designed a policy which the Finance Ministry has been really happy about and helped guide the setting up of the council. So this is the way we try to be responsible responsible citizens when it comes to critical policies. But of course, you hear us also make a lot of noise individually. That's not part of policy, so leave that alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kujo.
Right.
So my next question will be to each one of you. Sometimes I know that there are complaints about engaging with each other, whether it's parliament, with academia with civil society, but we all need each other to work and then get along. So I would like to know from each one of you, what can we do beyond the ad hoc, once here and there engagement? We come for a seminar, we come for a workshop, and the next time is the next 6 months or the next year. What can we do to have meaningful partnerships and engagements? I don't know if Honorable Opon Nkrumah would like to start.
Let me take a shot at that. So I believe in rhythms. I don't believe in ad hoc things very much. If you do things on an ad hoc basis, today may be convenient to do it, tomorrow it's not convenient. So I believe in rhythms. I think one of the things we need is to have some institutionalized rhythm by which identified institutions and CSOs work with specific committees in Parliament on an institutionalized basis on various projects. ISE, for example, very well respected. If you read the State of the Ghanaian Economy report that they have published for decades, I buy it, I read it right from my days at Joy FM. It gives me a very good perspective of what academics think about some of the policy interventions that have been made. In fact, if I just may segue, it was in the last publication that I saw analysis that ISE did on the revenue measures that we abolished in 2017, the NPP abolished in 2017, and how in the end it negatively affected the revenue effort of the country. And so, for example, when I was looking at the revenue measures that this government announced that it would abolish, I was looking at it through the lens of the work that ISE had done. Now, if you have a body like ISE, Mr. Speaker, on a regular basis, let's say engaging with the Committee on Economy and sharing some of these, lessons and some of these data sets, the interrogation that will be brought to documents that come before the committee will be less parochial, less partisan, and more driven by the insights from institutions and colleges on our campuses that are specializing. Those in the area of, environment, etc. UHAS has some good schools there on environmental protection, etc. If our committee on environment is working on something, whether it's Operation Vanguard or NIMOS as a way to deal with Galamsey, what are those in academia who are modeling these things? What are they seeing? What are the best practices from, is it Brazil or Argentina or wherever? And how are they factoring that into it? So I believe that institutionalized engagement is required. I also think that we should sift, the chaff from the wheat. These days, there are a lot of one-man CSOs that have come up, which you can sometimes tell are for obvious political parroting of one party or the other. We should find a way to step away from those ones and deal more with the credible institutions, whether it's in academia or CSOs that have built a record over a period, locally and internationally, and get them to, on an institutionalized basis, factor or feed into the work that committees are doing. That would be my perspective on it.
Thank you very much. Prof.
Thank you, Nana. I think that I side with Honorable Oponkroma. A more formalized system is critical, but that notwithstanding, I believe that as a country we have also come very far. I'm not too old, but since I joined the faculty, it is within this era that you find a lot of academics in the media space advocating for what we do, which is a good step. But those have been on ad hoc individual basis. I think that a more formalized, institutionalized setting is critical. But that said, the point is who funds it? Because these things are expensive. The CSOs, we know, research, because usually the academics, our KPIs, do the research, publish, get your promotion. All these external things are not part of our assessment criteria. And so if you want people to move that step forward, then you have to provide a better framework and an environment that would be able to help support it. Because the reality is the developed countries and the shiny examples we are so used to citing, this is what they do. The knowledge creation will come from the educational institutions, but it should not end there. It has to feed into policy to translate into the lived experiences that we are talking about. And so for me, I think that the institutionalized way of doing things is critical. Capacity building also, particularly for the media. Exactly, because they bring the findings out. If the journalists are more informed about the topic they are interrogating, it helps with the education of the general public in terms of what to expect. And in all this, the elephant in the room is the funding. Who is funding it? And I think that as we move forward, government should make it more of a priority, really.
Thank you. Mr. Kujo.
One of the things I think All right. Okay. So, one of the interesting conversations I've had so far, suggestions so far. One of the things I picked from reflecting over how we can encourage close collaboration with Parliament, but beyond Parliament, also the other governance, maybe the executive, the ministries, and whatever. Is this whole issue of trying to pass on knowledge, so let me give a practical example. So Honorable Penyo Markin is a very good friend of mine. Many people do not know anyway, but so Penyo Markin calls me and says, look, Franklin, I have about 18 or so researchers, 20 that I think I need training for. So I asked them, okay, let's know what your needs are. And so they gave us their needs, and so I put together my team. So, okay, let's design a program for them. And if you look at the program, clearly speaking, we draw on parliamentary, whatever happens in Parliament, how to understand policy, the budget process, the PFM issues. So we calibrate all of that. And I think we probably will develop a guidebook for every parliamentarian. I'm sure we can do that. But for starters, I thought when Apenya approached me, I thought that was a very significant, piece of, should I call it collaboration, a collaborative effort between a think tank and maybe his own whatever that he wants to do for his party. But I thought we should extend that, and I thought it was a very important way of trying to pass on knowledge. And I think if we have if the parliamentary research core, I know that Parliament has research assistants, right? Maybe we can begin to look into ways and means of trying to encourage them with knowledge from elsewhere, probably how to just do things right. And I think, for me, that's the only practical example I can give of how to collaborate and probably help parliamentarians make effective decisions or probably contributions on the floor of Parliament. Because I'm pretty sure that once we deliver the program, hopefully the 3rd week of August, I'm sure these 21 or so young guys will be energized. They said they wanted us to go and do it outside of Accra. I said, we are too busy, we'll do it in Accra. So no need to go and do it. They said they want to bond. I said, you bond through learning. You're not going to bond through swimming anywhere. But anyway, the point I'm making is that this is a very useful collaboration, and I think that we should build on that. And the academic centers that are equally delivering courses, she works with what's Texan. You guys work on the EPM program, the economic policy management program. It's a very, very, very good program that I think parliamentarians can take advantage of. And indeed, some parliamentarians have been students, and a number of them. So I think this is useful, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Prof. Chubesibafo asked who funds it, but I don't think anyone has spoken about it.
This one, Apenya is paying, so.
I mean, democracy is an expensive exercise, and it's important to get these things right. I think that bad policy is more expensive than paying extra to get all the parts of the policy architecture right. Parliament gets a budget. Mr. Speaker has every year, even from the NPP time till now, been making the point that the budget of Parliament must be adequate. And I think this is one of the reasons for which Parliament must be well resourced so that it can pay for some of these, collaborations. Of course, we also, as Mr. Speaker has done, work with the development partners to get him more resources. And he's shown a lot of leadership in getting the World Bank and a few other entities to support. But it is something that the state must prioritize to fund Parliament adequately so that some of these collaborations, can be paid for, and the quality of work that therefore you see MPs do will be higher. I know Ghanaians enjoy it when they see their members of Parliament on the floor speaking in a coherent manner, speaking with facts, speaking to data, as against some theatrics. But that must be invested in, and it's something that the state must take seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think what I've gotten from this round of questions was we need institutionalized rhythms, we need a more formalized system, and then we also need to encourage our parliamentary staff to actually take up some of these research and training. So my last question to each one of you, if you could recommend just one thing, it should be concrete and also achievable. So if you could recommend one concrete and achievable action to strengthen evidence-informed economic governance in Ghana over the next year, so I'm still in the 12 months timeline, what would it be? So I just want one concrete and achievable action that can be achieved in the next 12 months. Based on all that we've said, what can we actually do? Just one concrete and achievable action within the next 12 months to help when we come to having evidence for Parliament to actually do its work. Yes.
Okay. So again, I'll just use one example. I told my team that, look, we normally do what we assess, governments every time, right? Every year we assess, we do that, but I told them it's boring, and we don't want to do that thing again. Besides, it's not, we don't do impact analysis. All we do is just, oh, did you do this, did you do that? Did you do that? No. So we want to do impact analysis. And one of the things I think we can do within this next 12 months, and probably the results may be useful for Parliament, and may be useful when it comes to the issues around fiscal prudence, I think for me is to look at the plans of almost all the 23 ministries that we have right now, engage every ministry, probably 90 minutes, and ask them, look, what did you come to meet? What have you done about them? What are the significant gaps that exist? And how are you going to close those gaps? Actually, before they even, basically, this whole idea is to ensure that, first of all, they have to think twice before they answer some of the questions, because if you asked, how are you going to narrow this gap against the budget that you have, then it means you need to start thinking properly as to whether you have to make some rationalizations or cut costs here and there. Already, the opposition obviously is charging the minister for not spending. So I hope that the ministries don't see this as a mercenary call trying to find out what the ministers are trying to do. But please, this is totally independent. Nobody has asked me to do it. I just thought I need to do this. And by the way, 2 ministers already have volunteered. The trade minister and then the agric minister who called and said, oh, Frankie, I saw your note on the Ikuko Kitikitio, but please, can you come so that with us? I said, I'd like to assess everything you are doing, so we should come. And I think for me, if we are able to do those analysis against established international benchmarks, like the one my good friend, Dr. Robert, speaks about, we think we can begin to somehow contribute to the conversations about managing resources effectively. So that's the only thing I can tell you right now. Within 12 months, actually we'll finish before December, so we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be very interested in seeing what you come up with when you are done.
So one tangible thing, I think quarter 3 and quarter 4, a platform of CSO and academia for various sectors, engaging with the committees in their sectors. So my recommendation would be that Parliament identifies CSOs and academia for the various sectors, match them to the committees, and for quarter 3, quarter 4, let's have some engagement on the sectoral issues, to guide and shape the work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For me, I'm looking at the broader budgets, and so for the next 12 months, I'm anticipating we've obtained stabilization. It's important that we make intentional steps into sustainability of growth that we are achieving, and be intentional about the sources of the growth. And so for me, I want to see where spending is going on the part of infrastructure. We know that a lot is happening on the face of the big push. On industrialization drive, I expect that we build a lot more resilience from the agricultural sector into value addition, where we create wealth and also generate jobs. And so in that area, I want to see a lot more intentional steps that are being taken within this budget that we are operating with. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any last words from any of my panelists? Does anyone have something, some burning? I know we didn't discuss all issues, but something that you really want to say before we go into the next session, which is the question and answer. Anything to add? Anything to add? Honorable?
I have nothing useful to add.
Okay. Then I would like to say a big thank you to my panelists. I've actually learned a lot. I've enjoyed talking to each one of you. And for me, the key takeaway here is that we need timely evidence. We need to have our partnerships more formalized. And we need to look at what is existing now and what can be done, where the gaps are, and then try as much as possible to fill in these gaps so that our economy grows stronger and much, much better. I would like to say a big thank you to all of you for joining me today. Thank you so much, and thank you to our audience too.
Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for them once again. But before you go, we're supposed to have a question and answer session. So, moderator, you are not done yet. Just a minute. Please, camera crew, are you done? Okay. So please resume your seats. Just about. Okay. We will take a short reflection from the Right Honourable Speaker. Thank you.
Sorry, I just have to leave you. And from the panel discussions, I think I have some information to share with you, and sometimes tap from you your responses to some challenges we are meeting on some matters that are before us. Now, we just listened to the minister on the media budget review. And, you know, from the new standing orders and from the practice from 2024, this usually comes in the form of a statement, not a motion. And based on the fact that if they are not going to ask for additional funding and they're going to go by what we've approved, then there's no need for another approval. But the minister assured us, and even in the statement made it clear that they were not looking for additional funding. So there's no supplementary budget, and that would need our approval. But also indicated that, well, within the approved limits, they're going to make some adjustments here and there to try and realign some budgetary items and policies. And so I insisted that if they have to do that, and there may be some significant changes, they need approval from Parliament, which is assured me that they will bring in them in the form of bills and therefore we'll have the opportunity to discuss to approve some of those things. And so sometimes on the floor, when we guiding members, it's with this information that we use to support whatever we do. But the establishment of the Fiscal Council, we passed the law. The members have been named. But the law itself, they need approval by Parliament. This is not something we've done before. But we have some example we did concerning the deputy special prosecutor. There was a procedure we adopted because of the nature of the office and also the nature of the functions or duties that these members are going to perform. We're looking at an innovative way of getting people, them properly scrutinized, but also not expose them to danger. And so this occasion, for example, these members here and the committees that we selected are meant to be given that responsibility. And so they will be doing the scrutiny, but they might not be doing it to the public hearing that we've been doing for political appointees. This is something that will be for the first time. Members may be debating this issue. I think we may need your thoughts on that process. We are looking at doing it before even we go on recess, because they've been nominated for some time now. They need to get to work, but the law has not been complied with. We have to give that approval. I agree with you about this institutional rhythms, about formalizing our relationships. And I think in my speech, I gave some indication about it not being occasional or not just being regular, but a permanent breach. And that is why we have the Central Citizens Bureau, you know, for it to be permanent and exchanging ideas on this and other things. And so I totally agree with that proposal. But we also went beyond that and identified research institutions. And we have called on those research institutions to have permanent focal points for some committees, so that when you want information from ISA, the committee chairman or ranking members will know who to contact and get the information, if it is not with the bureau already in Parliament. This is what the administration has done. In fact, we have discussed this with your leaders about each committee having some research officers from research institutions and academia and civil society on their mandates. So we are at idem on this matter. The issue of funding, yes, we have always tried to budget for it, and we've always had struggle with the executive because they like the incremental budgeting. You know, all doesn't fit the current realities. And so sometimes when we are asking for 2-point-something billion, and then there's an outcry, people think that is for the members' remuneration. And then the executive come crying, they've given ceiling. Parliament is not an MDA to be giving a ceiling, you know? And then we are to approve it in a way. It's not the executive. You have to make a proposal to us. And if well informed, like this knowledge and this thing you are sharing with us, members will be able to convince their citizens, where they gave it the mandate, to support them to get government to reset the whole system of budgeting and where resources should go. But I'm sure the research funds that have been established can also support in this. But we've tried to do that. And also in Parliament, we have established the external support unit. That's what Honorable Opon Nkrumah was referring to. And they have reached out beyond the World Bank and the others. We've been writing proposals, even in our ecosystem and our environment, parliamentary networks. There are some sources of funding that Ghana has not been benefited from. And so we are trying to get all that. And the team have made quite great progress. These are all to support us to be able to catch up with the deficit in research that we have. Capacity building is a big challenge, big challenge. And I've been getting a lot of memos from members talking about going to train members of the committee. And most of them are looking outside. And that's one of the painful things I've been struggling with. And I've been trying to encourage them to look within. We have the men, we have the women within in Ghana that can build the capacity of members. But all memos are coming, we're going to Canada. Imani, Franklin Kujo just mentioned about the proposal from the minority leader, which mainly dealt with building capacities of members in Canada. And they went ahead to seek the assistance of ASEPA and all those things. And they are going to a huge cost. So I got a memo on that. And I said, no, we cannot get funding for that for members. And the number was not small too. The number was quite large, you know. But it's a very good proposal. It's a very good initiative by him. But the source of funding and how we think that some people outside there are better than us. It's never happened before in history. There are no better human resources outside than what we have in Ghana. I have read it and I've seen it, you know. So we need to look within, because that will be cheaper and that will rather be more relevant to our situation than what we are trying to look out from outside. We also have links with the NCSL, the National Conference for State Legislators in the US. And then UK, we have some links where we exchange what we call peer review and other information on parliamentary business. The last one is our engagement with the civil society organizations. And I must say that a number of them, including the think tank, even IDEC used to do a lot of work for us in the area of local governance. But these days, I think it's also there's some distress affecting IDEC. But we still have ASEPA always on daily basis with us. We tap a lot from you, Imani. CDD, we get a lot from CDD too. Then there are some NGOs who have identified, not the one-man CSOs, and not those with partisan politics. You in the parties can do that. But we, the empires, we are not looking at that at all. We have to hold the balance and make sure that we don't ignore the parties, we don't ignore partisans, because it's constitutional. Our party, our governance is based on party politics, multi-party politics, unless you say otherwise. It's not like the one in the US. Ours is very different. And so these are things that are already being initiated. With this partnership, and what we are doing today is to tap your expertise and knowledge on how to do it better. And I was just going around looking at our secretariat available and what they were doing to be able to produce a report and how we can reach out to the people. And I'm assured that what has been put on the ground is already a good lesson. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you and to applaud you.
Mr. Clerk, who are you leaving us with? Anyway, thank you. All right, I can see Deputy Minority, I can see Honorable Adongo, so we are safe. Thank you. Please may we have the first question. Once again, you tell us your name, then you give us your question or clarification. Then we'll take maybe three questions before I hand over to the panelists. All right.
Thank you. My name is Honorable Erikafo, Chairman on the Economy and Development Committee. Chairman, for this occasion, let me thank the organizers for this important engagement, tripartite engagement. And we have learned a lot from you concerning CSOs and academia. Chairman, there's something I want this tripartite engagement to assist this country. What I'm saying is there's a misconception out there that Parliament, for that matter, Member of Parliament, holds all the funds in this country. Meanwhile, we all know that the development funds given to the MPs are insufficient. How much is given to the MP for the National Insurance Authority? They get fund. Better still, the DACF. But any responsibility in the constituency, MPs are called. So I think this engagement should assist the members of Parliament for this misconception out there to be erased by the society. You see, if you want MPs to be responsible for these, to be responsible, we can take the, what do you call it, Zambia style and Kenyan style of giving about $1.2 million to the Member of Parliament as development fund. So I'm asking the panelists, what can we do since we have formed this tripartite, committee? Let's see how you can help Members of Parliament to take this. More so, you see, this is causing a lot of taking MPs out of Parliament. Let me give you the statistics. 7 Parliament, 123 MPs lost the seats because of this. 8 Parliament, 132 lost their seats. That's attrition rate in Parliament. And these are the causes. So I'm happy this committee, let me say this tripartite committee is in place to dialogue over this and make sure that this conception is erased from the people of Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, may we have the second question? All right.
Yes, mine is not a question per se, but I have just 2-3 points to highlight. One was on the overfixation on some of the macroeconomic indicators that we have, i.e. some of them, the inflation and the CD appreciation. There has to be a balance between currency appreciation and then export competitiveness, because you don't want to overly appreciate your currency and let the cost of your products that you want to export be more expensive in the world market. And so we need to balance this so that we don't overly hurt ourselves, we don't overly hurt our economy. Then the next one is on expenditure versus fiscal discipline. We know that, expenditure defines GDP to a larger extent. So, and more especially when your expenditure is within your budgeted expenditure, and then you want to withhold expenditure in the name of fiscal discipline, then you are hurting the economy. Because if you look at what ISA projected, you realize that in terms of export, we're really lacking behind. In terms of technology, we're lacking behind. And so some of these needs to be addressed. One of the things that this government has done that I would like to comment is the commitment authorization. I think there are some of the, if you ask me one thing that we need to focus on, is one thing that we need to really focus on. And then on technology, ISA's projection, we're also down on technology. We are having issues with gift mix. And if you go to the local assemblies, there are certain periods that gift mix is not working. whether it's a deliberate attempt sometimes on the part of the ministry so that, expenditure cannot go on at a certain level or a certain point in time so that we can be able to have our numbers done. We need to address some of these concerns. And then lastly is on capacity building. We have research assistants who assist members of parliament. If you look at the way they are recruited, it is not rigorous enough. Members of parliament suggest people who want, to help them in their research. They have basic qualifications like master's degree, but then they don't go to rigorous, recruitment exercise to really churn out the numbers or the caliber of people that we are bringing into parliament as research assistants to assist parliamentarians do their work effectively and efficiently. And then also their remuneration is nothing to write home about. You can't, someone who assists a member of parliament to represent the people. For example, I have over 300,000 people that I represent. My research assistant should be someone who is well-resourced, well-paid, and well-capacitated to deliver that service to me, because I have a host of things to do. But this is not how we find ourselves in parliament. So the parliament's budget should extend also to our research assistants and administrative assistants so that they can deliver the services to us that we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those reflections.
Yep. Thank you. I take this from the takeaway of Dr. Nanama Poku Asante, where she said, what exists now, we should take into consideration what exists now, what the gaps are, and what can be done next. We heard the finance minister said he's going to construct an express road from Accra to Kumasi, which is going to cost $4 billion, to which is already committed 1.7 billion towards the construction, with a gap of 2.3 billion. And then the project is yet to go through procurement and to start in September. Now, considering this decision, it looked like the president or the finance minister is looking at what can be done next, but not what exists and what the gaps are. I say this because we already have the dualization of Accra-Kumasi Road, which the total contract sum was $2 billion, with about 8 contractors already on the road, and the stage of completion is 64%. And then from available information, we need about $300 million to complete this. So if we are considering fiscal discipline and consolidation, and then considering also the traffic on the Accra-Kumasi Road, the accident rate and loss of lives, don't you think that would have been prudent in the time in which we find ourselves for the president to have completed the dualization of Accra-Kumasi Road instead of embarking on a huge $4 billion contract for the construction of a new road, which is also going to be a multi-year contract, and then they are already 2 years into power. That is one. Then we also saw that, the lending rate is low. Yes, it is low, and I think it was about 15 point something, which is low. But it is still one of the highest in the sub-region. My problem is that, yes, it is low. We should ask ourselves, how is accessibility? It's not about the lending rate being low. Are people able to access? If industrial players are not able to access the loans, it means that they cannot expand. Yet we're thinking about taxation, the tax bracket needs to be expanded so that the revenue mobilization targets can be met. Thank you.
All right, we're grateful. All right, okay. Please, how many more hands do we have? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. It's not a response, but just a suggestion. The difficulty we have is that the legal framework that is already established to control the fiscal and all the other issues are said that once the government complies, then you have a problem talking about gaps, which means that in a meeting like this, you expect, for instance, if you are discussing economic governance and public financial management, the key driver is the Ministry of Finance. So they need to be in this meeting and hear some of the conversations that are going on, because in the end, as Parliament, even if we want to introduce reforms that affect government budget, you are constrained because of the nature of our standing orders. So it will require civil society, Parliament, to advocate together with the sector ministries to bring the reforms that are required in Parliament to change the laws. Once that doesn't happen, then Parliament is limited in terms of what we can do. For instance, the issues is raised is down to issues of fiscal risk, okay? But our laws are saying that the fiscal risk, which is a requirement of cabinet, should not come to Parliament. So the Minister of Finance develops a fiscal strategy document which defines how he's going to raise money and spend. It doesn't come to Parliament. He advises Cabinet what is the nature of the fiscal risk facing the country. It doesn't come to Parliament. He determines the annual debt sustainability analysis. It doesn't come to Parliament. Then at the end of all that he's done, he brings you a budget. The budget is both and the estimates. So we get out and all we do is talk show. We criticize, we make suggestions, very good inputs, but it ends there, because at the end of the day, the budget doesn't go back to input the issues that have been raised by members of Parliament, to input the things that we have said. At the end, the question is put, and all we do is, yeah, the budget is carried. So even if there are clear policy inconsistencies, we are not able to address them. Then we go through the estimates, and in doing the estimates, you are basically doing exactly what the minister did in the policy. So you approve it, and you are limited because the minister says, this is how I want to spend my money. If you disagree, then you have to write to the minister to agree to move money from somewhere to another place. Otherwise, he will tell you that his appropriation will not balance. So at the end of the day, we pretend to be approving budgets. We pretend to be monitoring budgets, but in fact, there is no budget. So we need to have a conversation between civil society, Parliament, and the government to identify critical reforms that must be made and to encourage government to bring those reforms for Parliament to consider. Thank you very much.
Very good submission there. Honorable, please, can we hear you?
Thank you very much. My name is Dixon Chire-Duya, a member of the Ways and Means Committee. My first intervention is to reiterate the need for capacity building for all members of Parliament when it comes to oversight, rules, and gatekeeping activities. Because as we speak, in Parliament, it appears those responsibilities are limited to only few committees, Finance Committee, then Public Accounts Committee, Budget, and the Economy. But it is the responsibility of each and every member of Parliament to be involved. So when deliberations involving budget, spending, economy is limited within only few people, that is why it is important all parliamentarians are well informed to play their oversight responsibilities. Again, all the panelists highlighted the need for proper oversight. We keep talking about oversight, oversight. For me, it is such a broad word that as a parliamentarian, and for that matter, Parliament, what are some of the concrete actions we need to take to ensure that public purse is protected? So I want you to maybe few concrete things, not just oversight, beyond public accounts committee hearings, beyond meeting MDAs. What are some of the concrete things we need to do as members of parliament to get the purse protected? Thank you.
Okay, let's have the last one there. I think then that will be it, because when I come back to our panelists and take some few interventions from here, then we can call it a day. I hope we agree.
Good. My name is Ahmed. And
just a minute. You wanted to say something? Okay. Please, just a minute.
Thank you very much. Listening to our panelists and the note delivered by Mr. Speaker, underscored the need for team policing. And that team policing, listening to the questions and answers that are coming, I have a concern. My concern is how we can intentionally implement some of the observations, some of the shortcomings that we have. I remember Mr. Franklin, could you? Yes, talking about the environmental issues. You and I know that how long have we had this discussion about plastic manufacturers, and nothing has been done about it for several years. So how are we going to ensure that if we formalize these systems, it's not just going to be a talk show, but something that we can make intentional effort to take certain decisions and ensure that they are well implemented. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Honorable Dungu, I really heard your
Please,
cry.
you didn't tell us your name.
Oh, my name is Ahmed Usman Khalid. I'm a member of the Parliamentary Press Corps.
Okay.
And also an author.
All right.
Yeah, Honorable, in the submission, Honorable Dungu, you are allowed to start from you, then I'll move on. Yes, it's like from what you said, it sounds impliedly that Parliament is somehow being controlled by the executive. Because if...
No, it's not or is.
Come again?
You said is or not.
Oh, Parliament is being controlled somehow by the executive from the submission Adongo made, as I said, impliedly. So in that case, when the minister comes and he wants, or the minister doesn't want to appreciate what Parliament does, I think Parliament has the power to also block the minister's budget. So I don't know. Yes, if Parliament has all the powers to do something. So Honorable Adongo, and moreover, you are a chairman of the Finance Committee, and I know everyone knows, your role when it comes to financial matters in this country. So I thought, no, this issue should be raised here. I think you have that, conclave with the minister. Let him know that this is what members of Parliament feel. On the issue of research, I think Parliament has a very dedicated office where it has directors and all those who work in the research department. I don't know the correlation or the relationship that exists between members of Parliament, research assistant, and that of Parliament. So I think, with all respect, there should be that collaboration, that teamwork. I don't know if the research being posted to the various members of Parliament, if they are, party members, people, as my colleague said, are they qualified? Do they have the necessary skills and the training and so on and so forth? So let's see. I think Parliament has a dedicated department that handles research matters. Are we using that department wisely, productively, progressively? If not, then please, we need to do something. Prof, I don't know if you know that we have Ghana Research Fund. Because in the submission, you talk about financial assistance to those who go and do the research. Are we making use of, a fund which is an establishment of the state? I think it was passed in 2020. I forgot the name of the act. So I don't know. That fund exists, or that department exists. Are we making good use of the fund in order to improve on our research activities? Thank you very much, madam.
All right, thank you very much. Before I hand over to our team, I know that the research department is going through some robust reform in recent times. And again, there's some partnership with ISE. That is how come we have them here. So I'm sure that in some few months to come, we'll see that kind of collaboration and also how their work is implementing parliamentary work. Okay, so please, I come back to moderator and your team. So you're going to touch on the questions, interventions, probably if you have any other comments to make, you do that before we take our closing remarks, then we call it a day. So please, up to you.
Thank you very much, Madam. So we have several questions. I think some of them will go to Prof. Dakwose. Yes, and the ISA team, so Prof. Feni is also around, Prof. Janku, Dr. Ama. So the first question, if I remember correctly, was the misconception that MPs have all the funds in this country. I'm not sure who on the panel can answer this. Okay. MPs have all the funds. So,
okay, right. I think that's honorable. MPs are not development agents, but the reality is that is what prospective MPs are promising. And essentially, now citizens are also increasingly demanding because they see that other MPs are doing it. So I believe that it is a discussion that must be had, right? To the extent that MPs are providing all sorts, even World Cup, providing watch parties and all sorts of things. So if your colleagues are doing this and your constituents see that you are not, then trust me, the next session you are not coming back. And so it's something that is a conversation that needs to be had. But the reality is, if you go to your constituents, promise them better policies, will you get the votes? That is also another issue. But I think it's a constant education that must be going on in terms of what the expectations are. Because truth is, the very high attrition in Parliament doesn't help. We need to build capacity within that space. And if members are consistently changed, then that means that the House is handicapped, really.
I'll be brief. Thank you very much. For me, I think we cannot save the MP from himself or from herself, because clearly when you're on the campaign trail, the things you say are the reasons why you are in Parliament. So I think if you need salvation, you probably need to look within. I suspect you need to do that. But I think it is also important to be able to tell your constituents that, look, maybe, I don't know, as I said, I don't know the type of vision you painted for them. But if they don't see the vision, then there's a problem. So I think it is rather you and not, we can save you. I'm sorry, I really can't save you. Do something about that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Well, pardon me, I'm trying to shuttle between two different activities, so I had to leave. But on this one, I think the simple, straightforward response by all of us is to cut that resource and let the announcement go very clearly that these guys called MPs, they have no money to do any search. So even if they promised it in elections, know that it just can't happen. You see, by allowing this MP's common fund and these other funds to remain, you send a signal that indeed you can do things. So I think the way to do this, it sounds difficult because it was MPs that lobbied for those opportunities. That somehow we also want some money we can control. Originally it wasn't like that. So if you want money to control, then we will give you something. Then what that gave rise to then is expectations on the part of the people, because you, they vote on. The chief executives, they don't vote on. So you, they know. And then they put a lot of pressure on you. And then there's then the temptation on our part. When we are looking at the formula for DACF and GET fund, to get a big chunk, we abuse the power we have there. We take a big chunk, and then we try to satisfy constituents that you can never satisfy as a development agent. So the simple, straightforward response is, in the next budget, we should just cut that thing and announce to the whole nation that indeed the MPs are supposed to remain in parliament to make laws and to oversight the executives. Going forward, stop asking them for development projects because they have no money for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Okay, so the next question goes to Prof. Dakwose. So the question was whether there's an overfixation on macroeconomic indicators, looking at the need to be a balance between export appreciation and what we export. And then the B part of that question was also between expenditure and financial discipline. If you have budgeted for an item and you have not spent on it in the name of financial discipline, is this something that should be done?
Right. So it's always a very interesting question to ask. Is there an overfixation on macro stability? In my view, there isn't, because you need macro stability. But I have never been a minister of finance, so I wouldn't be able to say. But I believe that the very act of deciding what goes into a budget is not done just when you wake up in the morning. I think there is a science to it. And implicit in your expenditure patterns is essentially your prioritization. And of course, the ballpark number you say will be your total expenditure. You should have factored in how you would finance it. We don't ask a lot of those questions, to be honest. So when our political actors make promises, we don't always ask, how do you finance A, B, C, D? Now, once you express it in your budget, in the expenditures, it means that you have prioritized. And so, if you are not executing based on, of course, it's been passed by Parliament, right? If you are not executing based on what you prioritized, that is indication that either your priorities have changed or you probably got it horribly wrong. But of course, getting it horribly wrong in itself, I don't think it will be the first thing that would have happened in the world, right? It's about being able to learn as you go along. So use the evidence as you go along. So for instance, if your revenue stream is not coming in as expected, then you have to rethink and rejig. And I want to believe that that was the reason why the midterm budget reviews started, right? So you rethink the strategy and ask yourself the question of how then do you reprioritize based on the lack of revenue flows. But other than that, the execution of your budget is as important as, and of course you have to learn from that as well. If I may quickly also comment on the issue about the lending rate. The point that I think we were trying to make there is that the trends are in the right direction. However, we need to sustain it, because even at 15%, it is too high. Absolutely. But how do you finance that 15%, right? Remember that the financial institutions or the banks have an average non-performing loan of over 20%. So even before you walk into a bank, note that they have to start at that level, 20+%. I mean, we have the GRR, which works, but really, for the average person who goes to a bank, your starting point is the 20% plus. That is from a financial institution's point. Of course, I know that the Bank of Ghana is making all efforts to have the banks reduce, work at reducing that. But if people are taking loans and not paying, then you and I, if we go, I mean, the first mover will get away with it, but we, the second movers, will definitely have to pay for that. Because, of course, it is also you and I's money which is being used by the banks. So I think that the lending rates are trending in the right direction. We need to sustain that effort to bring it down, but that in itself is not also enough. We need to do other things to make sure that the system works for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Dakwose. So on the question regarding research assistants for MPs and the recruitment not being rigorous enough, yes.
Okay, well, that's the MP's experience. Sorry, were you the MP? Okay, all right. Well, I don't know. I have no idea about that. But I think that's why we want to provide some stopgap. I don't know what you suggest, but I think we should fix that. I don't think. I'm sure that the recruitment process can be very. I don't know. Frankly, I don't know. But I think let's help you see how we can narrow the gaps, and never know. But I think I'm not too sure it's for every MP, because some MPs are very great research assistants. I know. At least I know about 5 of them who are really, really good. And I'm not too sure. Are they not really being paid well? I don't know. Or maybe there are levels. Because the last guy I spoke with, I think he's paid close to about 10,000 Ghana cedis. I don't know. I have a feeling. Research assistants. I don't know. But maybe I don't. Let's find out. How much?
The leader is here.
How much are they being paid? On average? On average?
Honorable, please. I'm the research assistant. I'm their leader.
Sure.
But I think the figure you quoted as remuneration is far, far below what you receive.
Sorry? It's above or below?
No, it's below. Far, far below what you receive. I'm saying that what you said is higher, but what we are receiving is far, far below what you quoted.
Oh, I see. Okay. Maybe you don't want to share, but I don't know. But that's.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click on the bell for more updates.